The town of Riverbend, Kansas, nestled amongst fields of golden wheat, was so peaceful that the morning church bells could be heard all the way to the riverbank, where weeping willows dipped their branches into the clear water. In August 2022, the air was filled with the scent of a new school year, fresh paper and chalk dust. For Sarah Miller, a 28-year-old literature and English teacher, this was a fresh start. She had left the big city where painful memories clung to her in search of peace in a new, unfamiliar place. Riverbend felt like a blank page, a place where she believed she could write a new chapter of her own story. Sarah's classroom was on the second floor of Riverbend High, with windows overlooking the baseball field. The room was filled with sunlight, yet one corner was always shrouded in an indescribable melancholy. This was where a student named Alex sat. The 16-year-old, with short brown hair, often wore a gray flannel jacket even on hot days. He was small in stature, but his eyes were deep, holding a sadness that seemed to far outweigh his age. And next to him, there was always an empty chair. That chair was not simply unoccupied. It was intentionally left empty. Alex never placed his books or notebooks on it, nor did he allow anyone else to sit there. If a new student arrived, or a classmate simply looked for a temporary seat, Alex would quietly slide his own desk farther away, creating an invisible but firm boundary. Sarah noticed he would often lightly touch the surface of the empty desk, an unconscious habit. His gaze at times would linger on the chair, as if searching for an unseen presence. One morning, as Sarah was teaching a lesson on The Purple Hill, a story about friendship and loss, she saw Alex unexpectedly reach into his pocket and pull out a chocolate chip cookie. He looked at it for a moment, then quietly placed it on the corner of the empty desk before covering it with his textbook. This action was repeated every snack time, and Sarah knew then that it wasn't just an empty chair. It was a ghost chair, a seat filled with memories and an unceasing longing. A feeling of helplessness welled up inside Sarah. She knew she had to do something. From her own life experiences, she understood that unresolved pain would become a heavy burden, slowly eroding a person's soul. But Alex had built an impossibly strong, invisible wall. He always avoided her gaze, answered her questions with curt, clipped replies, and was always the first to leave the classroom when the bell rang. Alex's coldness and reserve weren't a sign of disrespect, but a natural defense mechanism, a way for him to protect his own world, a world that included Josh, his departed best friend. Sarah's worry grew as other students began to whisper and gossip. Some were curious, while others were simply annoyed by Alex's differences. She realized that if she didn't intervene, Alex would become increasingly isolated, and his pain would only deepen. Yet she was afraid that one wrong word, one rushed action might touch his wound and make everything worse. During a class discussion about book characters, she tried to elicit a little emotion from him. She asked Alex, "What would you do if you had a best friend, someone who always supported you, but then they were gone?" The entire class fell silent. Alex's eyes were like bottomless pits. He looked straight at her, but didn't say a word. He just quietly picked up his book, hid his face, and looked down. In that moment, Sarah felt as though she was touching a pain so vast it could swallow everything whole. Her small action had failed, but it became the starting point for a journey of healing. That night, she stayed at school very late. She looked out the classroom window at the baseball field where the faint glow of a street lamp illuminated the empty chair in the classroom. She realized that the chair was not only Alex's sadness, but also a symbol of what was lost, a silent cry for help. She told herself she had to do something not just for Alex, but also because of a promise she had made to herself that she would never let anyone endure their pain alone. Worry for Alex and the empty chair haunted Sarah all week. She tried every way to reach her student, but each time she got close, Alex automatically put up a defensive wall. He would look down, pretend to be busy with a book, or simply fall silent, making Sarah feel like an outsider watching from a distance. She understood that Alex's coldness was not a lack of respect, but a natural defense mechanism, a way for him to protect his own world. A world that included Josh, his departed best friend. Alex wasn't heartless. He was always aware of the curious looks and his teacher's concern. He felt trapped in an invisible cage, and the empty chair was part of that cage. The chair was a burden, but also a comfort. It was a symbol of their eternal friendship, a promise he had made to himself. He would never forget Josh, and he would never let anyone take his place. Every time he looked at the chair, memories flooded back. Alex remembered Josh's infectious laughter, their late-night baseball practices on the field, and their heartfelt talks about the innocent dreams of two boys. These memories were both sweet and painful, and they made Alex feel guilty. He believed that if it hadn't been for him, Josh wouldn't have died. This torment had become a heavy weight on Alex's shoulders, and the empty chair was its tangible manifestation. Unable to approach him directly, Sarah decided to change her teaching method. She didn't want to confront Alex's pain head-on. Instead, she began to introduce stories about friendship and loss in literature. She chose works where the main characters faced grief and loneliness and showed how they overcame it. She created an environment where students could discuss and share their feelings. During a lesson about a character who lost a best friend in an accident, Alex couldn't contain his emotions. While the class was discussing animatedly, Sarah saw Alex suddenly clench his fists, his eyes red. He quietly left the classroom, despite her soft call. Sarah couldn't ignore it. She followed Alex into the hallway. She didn't say anything, but stood silently beside him a short distance away. Her gaze was not one of interrogation, but of empathy and understanding. For nearly 5 minutes, they stood there in silence, with only the soft sound of the wind blowing through the long corridor. Finally, it was Alex who spoke. His voice choked with anger and pain. "You don't understand. That chair isn't empty. It's for Josh." The words were like a dam breaking, shattering the wall of silence Alex had built for so long. Alex told Sarah about Josh, about their close friendship since childhood. They were two perfect pieces, one an introvert, Alex, and the other an extrovert, Josh. Alex was good with numbers while Josh had an artistic soul and a warm heart. He told her about the accident, a summer camping trip last year, a heavy rainy afternoon, and a wrong decision. He and Josh had gone into the forest to find firewood, and in their haste to get back because of the rain, an old tree fell. Alex managed to escape, but Josh didn't. The pain of losing his friend had made Alex withdrawn. He believed that if he had been more careful, if he had stopped Josh, the accident wouldn't have happened. This torment had become a heavy weight on Alex's shoulders, and the empty chair was its tangible manifestation. Listening to his story, Sarah wasn't just a teacher listening. She saw herself in it. She remembered her own past pain about a dear friend who had left her forever. This helped her understand Alex on a deeper level. She told Alex that it wasn't his fault and that Josh wouldn't want him to live in sorrow. "Josh would want you to be happy, Alex. He would want you to live for him." These gentle but powerful words touched Alex's heart. He looked up, and for the first time in a year, he looked Sarah directly in the eyes, not with defensiveness, but with acceptance and trust. And in that moment, Alex's solid wall crumbled. Sarah's words had planted a seed of hope in Alex's heart. He returned to class, but not with his usual cold expression. His eyes, though still sorrowful, had lost some of their emptiness. For the first time, he felt his pain was understood and shared, rather than isolated in silence. Sarah had not just listened. She had put herself in his shoes, showing him that pain is a part of life, and what truly matters is how we face it. After that conversation, things began to change slowly, but surely. Sarah noticed Alex no longer avoided her gaze. Sometimes he would even look at her with an inquiring expression, as if seeking more advice or comfort. By chance, Sarah also spoke with Emma, a shy but perceptive girl in the class. Emma was a mutual friend of both Alex and Josh, and carried her own grief from losing a dear friend. Emma told Sarah more about the trio's memories, how Josh always brought both of them out of their shells, and about Alex's dream of becoming a scientist and Emma's dream of being an artist. These stories helped Sarah see a different Alex the Alex from before the pain arrived. One morning, Sarah arrived at class early. She saw a white daisy, Josh's favorite flower, on the empty desk. No one else was in the classroom, but she knew for certain it was Emma. The small, silent gesture touched Alex's heart. When Alex came to class that day, he sat down, his gaze lingering on the flower, then on Emma's face as she read her book. He just gave a slight nod, but for Emma, it was a silent acceptance, a wordless thank you. These small actions began to melt the icy layer that had covered Alex's heart. He started to open up more. During a group discussion about future dreams, Alex hesitantly shared Josh's unfinished dream to become a professional baseball player. He said that Josh's dream had inspired him, making him stronger. Alex's sincere words surprised his classmates. For the first time, they didn't see him as a cold boy, but as a caring friend carrying an immense grief. Alex's change made the classroom atmosphere warmer. Other students started to talk to him more actively. A few who had known Josh shared their own memories. One boy recalled how Josh had stood up for him against bullies. Another girl talked about the time Josh helped her with a difficult math assignment. These stories were like puzzle pieces, gradually creating a complete portrait of Josh, a friend they would never forget. Alex listened to it all, his eyes welling up, but this time not from pain, but from emotion. He realized that Josh didn't just live in his own memories, but in the hearts of many people. His grief was not a burden he had to carry alone. It was an invisible thread connecting him to his other friends and to the whole class. He no longer felt so alone. One afternoon after class, Alex lingered behind. Sarah was still at her desk preparing lesson plans. Alex walked over to her and said, his voice full of determination, "Miss Sarah, I want to do something. I want to do something to honor Josh." Sarah smiled. She knew this was the moment for Alex's pain to be transformed into a meaningful action. The empty chair was no longer a haunting ghost chair. It had become the inspiration for a big idea, a meaningful action that the whole class would do together. The solid wall around Alex's heart had completely crumbled, leaving behind a soul ready to embrace new things. Alex's determined words that afternoon were not just a sudden change, but the result of a long process. In his eyes, Sarah no longer saw the emptiness of grief, but the light of hope and will. She smiled a warm, sincere smile, encouraging Alex to share his idea. "What do you want to do, Alex?" she asked softly. Alex took a deep breath. Josh loved baseball, Miss Sarah. He dreamed of one day playing on a professional field. Our school's baseball field is old and damaged. I thought we could work together to fix it, make it the most beautiful field around here. The field will be named after Josh. Alex's idea was simple, yet incredibly meaningful. Sarah was deeply moved. Alex was no longer keeping his pain to himself. He wanted to turn it into a legacy, something good for the community. She believed this was the path to his true healing. "That's a wonderful idea, Alex," she said, "and I will help you." And so the new baseball field for Josh project was born. The next day, Sarah dedicated the entire class period to the project. She recounted the story of Alex, of Josh, and the presence of the empty chair. This time, the story was no longer a secret, but a call to action. She emphasized that pain could be a powerful motivator if they knew how to transform it into a meaningful act. The whole class listened in silence. Many students teared up as they heard Alex talk about his best friend. They finally understood why Alex had always kept that chair empty, and they felt regret for their past judgments. Emma, who had placed the flower on the empty desk, stood up, her voice small but full of determination. Josh was an amazing friend. I want to do something for him too. The unanimous support from the class deeply moved Alex. He never expected his grief could connect everyone so strongly. The project was divided into small groups, each responsible for a specific task. The planning and fundraising team. Alex, along with a few students who were good at math and management, was in charge of creating a detailed plan calculating the costs to repair the field and listing fundraising activities. The communications team. Jason, a popular student with many friends on social media along with Emma, was responsible for designing the logo, creating a website to call for support, and writing social media posts to spread the story. The technical team. Another group consisting of students who loved construction and sports was in charge of finding field designs, contacting construction companies, and researching the necessary materials. Initially, the project faced many difficulties. Some parents, upon hearing about students fundraising to fix a baseball field, were skeptical. They thought it was an unrealistic project and that the school should be responsible. A few local businesses also declined to sponsor, believing the project was too small and offered no economic benefits. These challenges discouraged some members of the class. "Maybe we can't do it," one student said. "Repairing a field costs so much money." But Alex didn't give up. He remembered Sarah's words, "Change always begins with small things and a little bit of faith." He stood up in front of the class, his voice filled with sincerity. "We're not just fixing a field. We're building something bigger. We're rebuilding friendship, rebuilding faith. Josh wouldn't want us to give up. Let's do it for him." Alex's words empowered the whole class. They started over with a higher level of determination. The communications team created a touching video telling the story of Alex and Josh's friendship, the empty chair, and their dream. The video quickly went viral on social media, receiving thousands of shares and positive comments. Words of encouragement and small donations from everywhere began to pour in. By the end of the month, thanks to the relentless efforts of the entire class, the amount of money raised had reached half of the initial goal. The class erupted in happiness and pride. The empty chair in Alex's classroom was no longer a symbol of pain, but had become a symbol of strength, unity, and compassion. Alex's pain had been transformed into action, and the river of emotion had begun to flow toward an ocean of hope. The initial success of the project not only brought in funds, but also ignited a flame of hope in the heart of every member. The money raised had reached half of the goal, but the road ahead was still long. The class knew that to turn the old baseball field into their dream, Josh baseball field, they needed more. They needed the whole community to join in. Sarah, in her role as advisor, skillfully connected the working groups. Alex's team continued to be in charge of fundraising, but this time with a bolder strategy. They didn't stop at just bake sales or auctions. Alex proposed a small charity concert, inviting amateur bands from the school and town to participate. It was Jason, with his smooth communication skills, who convinced local business owners to sponsor the event. Emma, with her artistic talent, drew a portrait of Josh and a sketch of the future baseball field, which were printed on t-shirts and sold at the concert. The details of Emma's drawing created a special appeal. The painting wasn't just a work of art. It was a story. It showed Josh with a radiant smile running on a perfect baseball field under the brilliant golden afternoon sun. Next to him was a small empty space where Emma had drawn Alex, sitting in the stands watching his friend. The painting touched many people's hearts, and every t-shirt sold was not just a purchase, but a promise and a symbol of empathy. But the project wasn't always smooth sailing. When news of the project was more widely published in the local newspaper, some people voiced their opposition. They claimed the project was just an emotional gimmick by a group of students seeking attention. One parent, a former school board member, sent a letter to the newspaper questioning the feasibility of the project and arguing that the funds should be used for more practical purposes. These criticisms were like a bucket of cold water on the class's enthusiasm. Feelings of disappointment and anger began to rise. Alex, as the project leader, felt the most pressure. One night, he accidentally read some of the negative comments online. They called him the boy who used the memory of the dead. His old pain resurfaced, and he began to question whether he was doing the right thing. Was he exploiting Josh's memory for his own gain? These thoughts kept him up at night, and his enthusiasm began to wane. Sarah noticed the change in Alex. She proactively met with him privately, not to persuade him, but to listen. "Those people don't understand, Alex," she said. "They don't see what you're doing, what the whole class is doing. They only see the surface. What's important is that we know what we're doing and for whom we're doing it." Sarah's words helped Alex regain his composure. He realized that this was not a battle against criticism, but a journey for Josh. He decided not to let the negativity affect him anymore. He focused on the positive things, the words of encouragement from neighbors, the small donations from elementary school students, and the unwavering enthusiasm of his classmates. A dramatic incident occurred when they almost lost all the fundraising money. The project's website, which stored information about sponsors and the amount of money raised unexpectedly, crashed due to a technical error. All the data was lost. The class was in a state of panic. It was a heavy blow to everyone's morale. Alex felt hopeless. He thought this was a sign that the project should not continue. But it was in that moment that the power of unity was once again demonstrated. Jason, the communications lead, quickly sought help from his father, a town IT expert. They spent all night trying to recover the data. Meanwhile, Emma constantly posted on social media announcing the issue and reassuring everyone that the project would continue. Sarah contacted the major sponsors to inform them and ask for their information again. After 48 tense hours, the data was successfully restored. The fundraising amount and the list of sponsors were back. This event was not only a challenge, but also a valuable lesson in resilience and faith. Alex, with his newfound calm and determination, stepped up to handle the problem, seek help, and reassure everyone. That action showed his remarkable growth from a boy who always hid away to a true leader. In the end, thanks to the relentless effort, resilience, and faith of the entire class, the project began to achieve great success. The power of every small piece from each person created a brilliant, complete picture, a river of hope and love flowing strongly forward, ready to make Josh's dream a reality. The technical glitch on the website didn't deter the class. On the contrary, it strengthened their faith and unity. The story of the crash and their efforts to restore the data was shared by Jason on social media, receiving even greater sympathy and support from the community. It proved that this was not a shallow project, but a journey of sincerity and determination. Alex's grief, once a hidden wound, was now understood and shared by everyone. He no longer felt alone. Every morning he came to school, he received words of encouragement from friends and teachers. The small donations from elementary school students and the heartfelt messages from townspeople helped Alex realize that Josh was not just his friend, but also a beautiful memory for the entire community. His pain was no longer a burden. It had transformed into an invisible thread connecting everyone. The success of the concert and auction brought in a significant amount of money. Now they had enough funds to begin the first phase of the project, leveling and laying the foundation for the field. With Sarah's help and the technical team, Alex contacted a team of volunteer construction workers who were deeply moved by Josh's story. They agreed to help at the lowest possible cost. A local construction material company also decided to sponsor a portion of the materials as they believed in the project's purpose. The construction began. Alex was not just the project leader on paper. He was actively involved in every step. He and his technical team cleaned up the old field, worked with the builders to level and measure the ground. He learned how to use tools, how to work effectively as a team. A smile returned to his face, not a forced one, but a radiant smile of hope. One afternoon, as the class was cleaning up old bricks together, Alex came up with an idea. He suggested placing a special brick at the center of the field, inscribed with Josh's name. "So everyone will always remember that this field exists because of him," he said to Emma and Jason. The idea was enthusiastically supported by everyone. They found a white marble stone and carved the words, "Josh's baseball field, where friendship begins." When the stone was laid, everyone fell silent. It was a sacred moment, a way for everyone to say thank you and goodbye to their departed friend. Standing there, looking at the stone, Alex felt a strange sense of relief. The pain was no longer there. It had become a beautiful memory, a legacy that would live on forever. The project gradually moved into its final stages. Little by little, the old dilapidated baseball field was replaced by a pristine new one, with lush green grass, clear white lines, and freshly painted stands. Every day, Alex stood on the field, imagining Josh running, pitching, and laughing. He no longer felt sad, but proud. He had made his friend's unfinished dream a reality. One of Alex's biggest transformations was that he had become a true leader. From a boy who always hid away, he confidently stood before crowds, presented plans, and thanked everyone. In a meeting with major sponsors, he spoke about his friendship with Josh, about the empty chair, and how pain had become a motivation. His voice was no longer shaky, but filled with sincerity and conviction. "We're not just building a baseball field, Wissam," he said. "We're building a community where friendship and compassion are nurtured." In the end, thanks to the relentless effort, resilience, and faith of the entire class, the project achieved great success. The power of every small piece from each person created a brilliant, complete picture, a river of hope and love flowing strongly forward, ready to make Josh's dream a reality. The empty chair was finally filled not with a new person, but with a journey of healing compassion and hope. The dedication day for Josh's baseball field was a special day for the town of Riverbend. The sky was clear blue, and the sun shone brightly, as if welcoming a momentous occasion. The entire town gathered in the stands, from gray-haired elders to toddlers, all wanting to witness this historic moment. On the field below, a red ribbon was stretched across, ready for the dedication ceremony. Alex, Emma, Jason, and Sarah stood there, along with the principal and some honored guests, with smiles that were both happy and deeply emotional. Today, Alex was no longer the quiet boy he once was. He wore Josh's baseball jersey, a keepsake he had carefully preserved. The jersey was a little worn, but still intact, just like their friendship. Looking at it, memories of Josh flooded back, the sound of his clear laughter, the times they practiced until they were exhausted, and the moments they spent together, dreaming of a bright future on the old baseball field. The school's principal, a serious man with a warm heart, gave a short speech. He not only praised the students' efforts, but also emphasized the significance of the project. "This is not just a new baseball field," he said, "but a symbol of friendship, compassion, and unity. This project has shown us that a small idea born from the heart can create great change. After the principal's speech, it was Alex's turn. He stepped onto the podium, feeling both nervous and proud. He didn't have a script. He just stood there, looking down at the stands filled with loved ones and friends who had been with him on this journey, and looked toward the field where the marble stone with Josh's name lay. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice no longer trembling but filled with sincerity and emotion. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. Today, I stand here not as the project leader, but as a friend. A friend who once lost his best friend. Alex paused, his eyes welling up. Last year, after Josh passed away, I lived in a world of silence. I shut myself off and kept a chair empty in our classroom. That chair to me was my world with Josh. I believed that as long as that chair was empty, Josh would always be by my side. But then Ms. Sarah appeared. She helped me understand that Josh wouldn't want me to live in silence. He would want me to live a meaningful life. And our class, they helped me turn that pain into a meaningful action. This project, this field, isn't meant to fill the empty chair, but to fill the emptiness in my heart. It's to prove that our friendship never ends. This field is where our friendship will live on forever. Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Thank you to my classmates, and thank you to everyone who supported us. You helped me find my smile again. You taught me that pain can be turned into strength. And today, the empty chair in my classroom is no longer empty. It's filled with love, kindness, and hope. After Alex's moving speech, the entire crowd rose to their feet and applauded. Many people were brought to tears not just by his story, but by his growth and his courage. The ribbon-cutting ceremony took place to the cheers of everyone. Afterward, Alex took Josh's baseball bat, stood at home plate. Jason threw a ball toward him. Alex swung the bat, a perfect hit that sent the ball flying straight toward the stands. It was a home run, a salute, and a heartfelt farewell to his best friend. He looked toward the marble stone, smiled radiantly, and whispered, "We did it, Josh." That day, Josh's field was not only dedicated, but it also became the place where a new chapter began for Alex and the entire town of Riverbend. This new chapter was no longer about pain, but about healing, hope, and compassion. The empty chair had been filled not with forgetting, but with a new friendship built upon the foundation of a great old one. After the dedication day, life in the town of Riverbend seemed to turn a new page. Josh's baseball field was more than a sports facility. It had become the heart of the community. It wasn't just a place for the school's teams to practice, but a place for families to gather on weekends, where children played and where laughter and joy spread. The empty chair in Alex's classroom had fulfilled its purpose, giving way to a greater legacy. A baseball field named after Josh, a scholarship fund in his name, and an inspiring story. For Alex, the biggest change wasn't the baseball field, but in his own soul. He had truly healed. The pain was still there, but it was no longer an open wound. It had become a part of his past, a beautiful memory he cherished. He hadn't forgotten Josh, but he had learned to live with the memory, transforming it into a source of strength to move forward. He was no longer withdrawn or isolated. He actively participated in school activities, connected with friends, and became a trustworthy role model. One afternoon, as Sarah was preparing her lesson plans, a new student arrived in class. His name was David, a shy, timid boy. Sarah arranged for him to sit in the chair next to Alex, the very chair that had belonged to Josh. She was worried about how Alex would react, but Alex simply smiled. He greeted David, helped him organize his books, and introduced him to his classmates. Alex's actions deeply moved Sarah. He had filled the empty chair not with forgetting, but with a new friendship built on a foundation of compassion and understanding. The story of the empty chair and Alex's journey of healing became a powerful lesson for everyone at the school. The principal decided to make it the theme for the beginning of the year assembly. Sarah, as the advisor for Alex and the class, was invited to the podium. She shared the story, talking about how a seemingly insurmountable pain could become the motivation for a meaningful action. She emphasized that compassion and understanding could create miracles. During the assembly, Sarah wrote a letter of thanks to Alex and the entire class. "You have taught me an invaluable lesson," she wrote. "You have shown me that the greatest meaning of teaching is not to impart knowledge, but to nurture souls, helping them grow strong and compassionate. You have turned a story of pain into a story of hope. I am so proud of you." Alex, along with Emma and Jason, became representatives for the project. They were invited to speak at other schools in the area, sharing their story and inspiring many other young people. The Josh Scholarship Fund received more donations, helping many students from difficult circumstances pursue their dreams. The new baseball field was not just a place to play ball, but a place for people to gather, to remember Josh, and to believe in the power of friendship. Alex had matured a great deal. He no longer lived in the past. He still kept Josh's baseball jersey and looked at their photos. But now the memory was no longer pain. It was a reminder that he once had an amazing friend and that he had to live a meaningful life, not just for himself, but also for Josh. He was no longer afraid. He had found himself a stronger, more compassionate person who knew how to face pain and how to spread hope. The empty chair had been filled not by forgetting, but by a new friendship built on the foundation of a great old one. A year later, as the maple leaves began to turn golden once more, Sarah looked out her classroom window. Autumn had returned, but everything had changed. The classroom was still there with familiar and new faces. The empty chair which had once haunted her and the class was now filled. David, the new student, was sitting there. He was no longer shy. He had found a new friend, a reliable older brother figure. And that person was none other than Alex. Alex had matured a great deal. He was no longer the silent, withdrawn boy he once was. He joined the school's baseball club, became captain, and inspired his teammates with a spirit of camaraderie. He still kept the small baseball pin in his pocket, a memento of Josh. But now, every time he touched it, he no longer felt pain, but gratitude. He knew that Josh was always with him in his heart, in his memories, and in every game on the new field. One afternoon after class, Alex stayed behind with Sarah. He told her about his future plans. He wanted to study architecture so he could design more beautiful baseball fields and green parks for children. He said that the baseball field renovation project had ignited that passion in him. Sarah listened, filled with pride. She had seen a student who seemed on the verge of being defeated by pain now stand up stronger and more ambitious than ever. "You filled the empty chair, Alex," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. "Not with forgetting, but with a new friendship, with a new future." Alex smiled. "That's right, Ms. Sarah. I've learned that we can't fill pain by avoiding it. We have to face it and turn it into something meaningful. The empty chair taught me that." The story of the empty chair didn't just end with Alex and Sarah's class. It became a small legend at Riverbend High. New students, upon hearing about the chair, understood that each of us carries an empty chair in our hearts, a space of pain and loss. But what's important is how we choose to face it, how we choose to turn it into a source of strength to live a better life. Josh's Field became a gathering place for the town's youth, a symbol of friendship and unity. Every year, students from the school organized a baseball tournament called the Josh Baseball Tournament to honor their departed friend. And every year the empty chair in Sarah's classroom was mentioned as a testament to how one small act of compassion could change a life. The story concludes with a final image of Sarah on an autumn afternoon, looking out her classroom window. Outside on the baseball field, Alex was teaching David how to pitch. He smiled, his face as bright as the sunlight. Inside the classroom, a new student was sitting in Josh's old chair. Alex was still there right next to his new friend, but this time with a radiant smile and a healed heart. The empty chair had been filled not with forgetting, but with a new friendship built on the foundation of a great old one. The story of the empty chair was not a story about death, but a story about life, about friendship, and about hope. Sarah knew that this was the greatest legacy she, Alex, and the class had created. It was a legacy of compassion, understanding, and faith in a bright future where there would be no empty chairs of pain.